Folks, welcome again to the Discipleship module. This week we're looking at Discipleship Methods. And what that means is just what do you do when you're discipling somebody? As opposed to simply ask you that question is the starting point. What would you do? You got together, you've set some goals, then how do you go about working towards those? Some of the things should be obvious, right? Some of the things that we should be trying to do. I think a lot of the things I would try and do are similar to what we did in the first module at the Bible College on how to take responsibility for my faith, helping somebody develop their faith. But there might be other aspects of their faith and life that you really want to work on, that they really want to try and change. And in that case, it might take different methods. It might take different things. So let's have a look at just a few of the possibilities. It might be obvious to you, some of this stuff, but for others it might be challenging, it might be interesting, it might be new. So let's just try and think along these lines together. Some of the methods you could use, obviously, is to study the Bible. There's lots of ways to do that. You can work through a passage together, sit down and read it together, discuss what it means, ask questions about it, make sure they get what it says. Part of the question is, well, what would you study? I guess that's down to what you're trying to develop. Others use Bible reading notes together, or maybe you go away and you read separately and you come back together and discuss it. There's lots of ways to do Bible study, but essentially it's got to be focused on what you're trying to get out of things. If we're doing church, we do Bible study, we do preaching, we do sermons that take you through the Bible. Not by accident, because we think that's where God speaks. It's God's voice. But we do it in a way that suits the program. We're trying to get people to a certain point. At the moment, we're looking at the Old Testament, and we're doing an outline of the Old Testament, because as leaders of the church, we thought that maybe it might be helpful for people to think through the Old Testament a little more, to discuss it a bit more, to have a better understanding of what's going on there. So Bible study seems obvious, but it might not be that you sit down and read it together. It might not be that you have to read a certain passage every week or whatever, but it's an opportunity to help each other read the Bible, study it, be used to it. We have notes at the church for people who are wanting to learn how to study the Bible a bit better, different pages they can fill in that help them out, different notes about how to read the Bible. And there's more on the Bible module that we've done as well. So there's plenty of ways to do Bible study, but it's about being focused on what will help. We don't just read the Bible randomly, open it at a page and hope that it hits home. We follow a passage or a reading or a set of programs because we want to get something from the Bible. So let's do that. And when you're discipling somebody, prayer, to me, is even more vital than Bible study. Prayer is that opening up to God and helping each other pray. Some people have never prayed in front of anybody before, and to pray in front of one person might seem difficult, but for them it's a huge first step in becoming comfortable with praying, listening to how other people pray, even starting again and making mistakes. And we talk to God, yes, and God is holy, but fixing the right words together isn't always what God wants. He wants a real conversation, a real relationship. And so becoming familiar with God in prayer, it takes time and takes effort and takes a lot of praying together. And you can guide somebody in getting to know the voice of God in prayer and listening in prayer, and how to pray in ways that open up rather than close down your ideas and help you listen to God. Might seem strange to throw it in early, but evangelism is a thing that can be very helpful for a lot of people to do when you're discipling them. It's to take them and to help others, help them share the message with others, or even just to invite somebody to something. it's that stretch, that little bit of courage that it takes to do that. But it also brings home the reality of what it means. When you start telling somebody about what Jesus has done, it brings it home to you. I don't know if we understand what it means that Jesus died in our place until we realize that some people are dying in their own place because they won't accept Jesus. And so you see, evangelism makes a difference. And we sometimes try and do that as a method of discipling somebody. We take them along, or we encourage them to do some evangelism, to reach out and to share their faith. And the next possibility is questioning, and not accidental questioning, prepared questions, thoughtful questions, questions that ask and probe at what's really going on. You find the questions Jesus asks in his disciples are very rarely accidental or just for conversation. He's very good at asking the right question. So what might the right questions be? Things that help towards the goals that you're aiming at. If somebody wants to change a certain characteristic or to become more hopeful, for example, well then, the questions are, well, where have you lacked hope? What's caused that? What's the root underneath that? Could we bring a habit into play that might help with that? Do we need to get rid of some habits that stop that? And you can ask some of those questions. You can ask all kinds of questions. And it helps you get to know them, but also helps you get to the crux of what we're trying to do, which is change. Being disciples means changing as we follow Jesus, changing to the way he does things. Now, I've just put eating together here, but there's a lot more to it than that. The idea of fellowship and spending time together. A cup of coffee is how a lot of people start discipleship and continue it, but I don't drink coffee, so I like eating. And there's something about sitting around food, discussing, sharing the food, being part of the table, that is a lot more close than just talking together or sitting in a circle. There's something about the openness of eating and being together that we talk more freely. Eating together also is about providing for one another, and there's that kind of connection of care and concern as well. And fellowship goes beyond just eating together. There's lots of things that you can do together that are really useful. Doing jobs together, we'll come to activities and things, but the ideas of just being around each other, just talking, going for a long walk in the beautiful scenery around where you are, thinking about what God has done, talking about families and friends and heroes and people that you've had trouble with, all sorts of things that come up when you're just chatting and talking, but that are really helpful for connecting. Let's have a few more then. Activity, I've just called it activity, but just the idea of doing something together. That might be going around to somebody's house and cleaning up and hoovering and tidying and helping. It might be painting. It might be something very practical like that. It might be helping them with a subject at school, if it's a young person, just getting stuck into that subject, or playing sport together, or maybe it's Christian activities that we sing together, or we practice something together. There's lots of ways to do activity, but it's really valuable to do something, to be working on a project together. When people talk about fellowship, they talk about fellows in a ship, actually people handling a ship and moving it together and making it go, and that a ship's easier to move whenever it's in the water and it's going somewhere. You can turn it, and activity helps us grow together. I suppose you might think about what activities you could do. Is having a cup of coffee enough of an activity, or could we do something more? Maybe somebody struggling with debt and helping them balance their books could be massive for them. And, working with that could really just open up conversations and their lives. We have to think about what these activities might look like in our reality. Next thing I've just called accountability, but it's that idea of doing things together or setting goals together, and committing to doing the same tasks. Accountability is more than that, and it is about the integrity that you have in the way you do things and the way you connect. Accountability is saying, I'll do this and you'll do this. We'll be together in this. We'll work on this together. I'll help you with this in a real way. And it's saying that I'm on the same journey as you. And I think that's important. Sometimes it can feel like in discipleship, you're talking down to somebody, or people feel like they're being talked down to. Now, that's not what you're doing. You want to help, but in trying to help, you're not saying, I've got all the answers. I know what to do. And so in accountability, we're saying that we're in this together. And we make the pacts to do the same things, to be part of the same program. In your notes, I think the order of these is different. So church comes earlier in the notes. I've called it, church and sacraments. But the whole idea of church is to disciple people, isn't it? To help the people who are Christians grow and to reach out to others and to bring them in and to help them find faith, and then to help them grow, and then to help them reach out and bring in others, to bring in more that come to faith and help them grow. It's not about growing our church or growing our local body, but it's about bringing people to Jesus. And so if the church is for that purpose, use the church. You think, well, how do you use the church? Well, maybe you're not good at sharing your faith with somebody, but maybe you can invite them to the church. Maybe you're working with somebody who's got some talents or some skills or some gifts, and you encourage them to get involved in this at church or to be part of this. Maybe you're struggling how to teach them to read the Bible for themselves. Well, maybe you bring them to the adult Bible class where they can learn. And there's lots of ways then of using church for the good of the person that you're discipling, and working with them and helping them and taking the opportunities that are there. When I've talked about sacraments there, we talk about the idea of special events that help act as sort of step changes in your faith. And so some of the sacraments are things like getting baptized, breaking bread together, taking the breaking of bread, and getting married. Some of these things you think, well, but actually doing things with the church in Christian ways can be really helpful to disciple somebody and bring them on in their faith. And that's part of the program. So we use these things to help people grow. We bring them to the next stage, the next event, and help them grow in their faith. We also want to see them develop their character. The last two are a little bit more maybe connecting what we're going for, what we're looking to see change with some of the activities. And character development is not saying I sit there and develop your character, but we talk about what it is you want to change in your character, and we choose the other elements that we've just mentioned to work towards that. Maybe you think about character development, like if I want to develop joy, well, what activities do we do to help me develop joy? Some things that I'll enjoy, yes, but some things also that I go away and do that help me focus on what is good rather than what is bad. Just focus exercises or change in perspectives. So we want to change real things, and to change real things, we do real things. And character development's part of that. And so is looking at spiritual gifting. The Bible talks about a number of spiritual gifts. You can read about it in different programs and courses. We've studied spiritual gifts at the church and done the courses where you can test your gifting and so on. But there's lots of gifting depending on how you see it. In the Getting In program, we look at 7 spiritual gifts. In one of the programs I did before, there are 19 spiritual gifts, and that's not including the sign gifts, which are obvious. Either you do miracles or you don't do miracles. Either you speak in tongues or you don't speak in tongues. So we can look at spiritual gifting and say, well, I want you to develop your faith and the gifting that God has given you for the good of yourself and others. So what might that look like, and how might you nurture those gifts? Some of the talents we have need nurtured and encouraged and given opportunities. Somebody really is prophetic. How do we give them an opportunity to share their words with more than just themselves or myself, but the church, with others who need it? How do we get somebody who's an encourager to really use that gift? These are the sort of things you can think about and work out plans for. We would like to see real plans, real things happening. So discipleship is about saying, right, well, I want to help somebody in these areas with these things. What is it going to take? What are we going to do? Looking at discipleship is not just about looking at an idea. It's looking about how to make that idea real and practical and to do it. So have a think through what activities and what action you're going to take, what elements you're going to include in trying to help disciple somebody. Think of the person first and the things that they need together with them, and then think about what methods will help you reach those goals. So discipleship methods, there are many more. I've had discipleship relationships where people have said, well, let's read this book together. And I go away and read it, and they go away and read it. I've had discipleship relationships where people have said, right, let's get out there, let's go do this. We're going to go and talk to some people, or we're going to try this, or you can run this event, or you can go and lead that, and I will back you up. And I've had all these sorts of support and different things. I've had others who've sort of sent me and said, go make it happen. And so we have to look at how do we do this? Where is somebody at in their faith, and how do we make it more real and more alive? And what elements do we include when we're trying to do that? So I would encourage you by the end of this module, if not before, to have a person and a program that you would do with a person that you're thinking about, some goals you'd have for that person, and the sort of idea of a program you would put together for them. Even if you're not going to do the assignments for the module, it certainly wouldn't do you any harm to think through it that way and to say, right, well, what am I really trying to do here? What model am I going to use? Are we going to do this with a group, or with a one-to-one, or one-to-few, or what are we going to do? What elements are we going to include? How am I going to get the goals in place? And so on, and really break it down until it becomes an idea that isn't out there, but is actually quite practical. We're not studying this module just so that you can do an assignment and get a result. We're studying this module because we really want to disciple people. We want to make church more effective at discipling others. So have a think through what you could do with someone and what that might look like.